Thank you very much. Thank you. I've fought against the European Union for over 40 years. My father started the Danish No movement in 1972. Denmark voted to join the common market as it was then known, and the change of name actually tells the whole story. What we were told we were joining was a common market where countries would trade freely with each other, not the political superstate we see now. If we ask the peoples of Europe whether they want a political superstate or a common market, there would be a huge majority for a common market. But the people are never asked. And when the people are finally asked, their answer is roundly ignored. Parliament is meeting today to discuss a possible new treaty between us and the EU. And I think we can agree that this new treaty is Brino, Brexit in name only. We have seen how the professional politicians have come up with all excuses under the sun to justify their behavior over the last 2 years, despite the fact that over 90% of them stood on a manifesto saying they would respect the result of the 2016 referendum. Corbyn, the Islington intellectual, doesn't see the hypocrisy in what he says. He wants to ignore the will of the British people whilst also claiming to stand up for those ignored in society. He is the one ignoring us. The Labour Party's credentials as representatives of the working class has been shattered over the past few decades. Members of Corbyn's first shadow cabinet in 2015 were 3 times more likely than average to have been privately educated, and nearly half of them attended Oxbridge. I wonder what the last working men's club Jeremy Corbyn went into was. And when they talk about workers' rights, how can they, with a straight face, say that they all come from the European Union? It is a total lie, and anyone with any knowledge of the history of Britain's working classes and the struggles for workers' rights would know that the European Union has been a hindrance rather than a help. I trust the voters, and I trust that people feel it is important to secure workers' rights within or without the EU. Jeremy, you should stop only listening to people in Islington. Go to Burnley, go to Crewe, go to Wigan, places I've been in the last week, and talk to your voters. And to quote Tony Benn as well, as he said, we lend our vote to the politicians. And Jeremy, if you don't listen, then the voters will take their vote away. But this is not just about a Labour Party problem. The working classes in our country have been ignored by the whole political establishment. Between 1964 and 2015, the percentage of elected politicians who had worked in manual occupations crashed from 37% to 3%. And now they talk about having another referendum. But a clean break Brexit is not going to be on the ballot. It will only be a rubbish new treaty or Remain we can vote for. Where are we? North Korea? And no one is talking about the terrifying direction the EU is taking. If we follow what the illiberal anti-democrats want us to do, our future will be as a federal state in a united European country. But does the BBC talk about that? Nobody tells us that if we remain, we will be forced into an EU army. Nobody tells us that if we remain, we will be giving the EU tax-raising powers. And nobody tells us that if we remain, we will lose our veto. But that is the reality, not that you would ever hear about it though. I have been a trade unionist for my entire working life, and I know the importance of standing united. I've been an NHS dentist for 35 years, and for the past 10, I've seen the take-home pay of my colleagues go down by over 35%. Hard-working dentists, many of whom have dedicated their careers to provide good quality care on the NHS to those most in need and most vulnerable, have been pushed away by the draconian changes made by consecutive governments. I worked as the head of the only dental trade union for 5 years, fighting for their voices to be heard. And the only way we are going to be heard is by standing shoulder to shoulder and work together against the forces that are trying to ignore our voices. People have died for their right to vote, their right to be heard, and their right to influence their own future. People at Peterloo died for this, like other people before and after them. And I will be damned if I will let EU and the establishment ignore the voices of the 17.4 million people that wanted their right to influence their own future. And just to finish off with a quote from Rabbi Sachs, every one of us counts. Every one of us has a voice. You lose that, you lose everything, because then it becomes a game for the rich and powerful. Thank you very much.